It is widely believed that Raila said Kibaki tosha. Najua ni Mjaluo sana sana. Kibaki tosa. Kibaki tosa. He didn't say Kibaki tosha. A lot of people say that he said so. Even he himself, in public gatherings and everywhere, he has always been saying, didn't I say Kibaki tosha? Well, he did say what Kibaki, he did say Kibaki tosha. And for clarity of the matters, that is why you find that in places like inquiry, places like courtrooms and anything, you are told to say in your own words as much as possible, repeating what he said. And then, as much as it is important, you know what you say, the circumstances leading to your saying, or the environment that you are in when you say something also matters. It is not just a matter of saying, he said this or said that. It is also the environment is important to say. On that day, let us start with the Uhuru Park. That afternoon in Uhuru Park, people had actually, the mob that was in Uhuru Park then on that afternoon, even today, that was 2002, 22 years later, trying to raise such a crowd is not easy. And in today's circumstances, raising that crowd, you do not rule out the possibility that some of the organizers of that have brought in people from out. But this is something that people largely came voluntarily, and after the meeting they went. So that afternoon, the master of ceremony was Raila Amolo Odinga. There is an advantage of being a master of ceremony. In any meeting, in any gathering, be careful with what you say about somebody who is going to talk after you. Recently in Bungoma, where there was a funeral for namesake of the governor, Walusaka, and even the former MP called Suleiman Murunga. Eugene Wamalwa talked, but he's supposed to have known that after he had talked, the arrangement of people who are going to talk after you are some of who are you should not attack them, or you should be very careful, because if you say something that they don't agree with, when it reaches their time to talk, they will talk and you'll have no time to counter that unless you call a press conference then. So in any public meeting, if you're not the guest of honor, don't talk about something that the guest of honor may counter. So the last person to speak that day was Mwai Kibaki. Emilio Mwai Kibaki was the last person to speak. But Raila had an advantage. Raila was the master of ceremony. Was the master of the ceremony. The master of ceremony is the person who speaks last. Actually, even after the guest of honor has spoken, the master of ceremony has 3, 4, or even 5 chances to speak after the guest of honor. Because after the guest of honor has spoken, the master of ceremony will now call for the person who will give a vote of thanks. Then the same master of ceremony again will call somebody for closing the prayers, isn't it? And then after closing prayers, the master of ceremony can now dismiss people to go home. So master of ceremony has an opportunity to speak later, and not only later, to speak several times. It is after Mwai Kibaki had spoken, who was the last speaker, that as he was going back to his seat, then Raila Amolo Odinga turned to the crowd and said, "Mumemuona." The crowd reared back, "Ndio, mumemuona, ndio. Si anatosha." The crowd said, "Yes, anatosha." You see, there are some things, once they happen, you just go by it. Now, I want us to share an imaginary thought of what other people who wanted to be the president, or the single, not the president. Actually, most of the people who had gone there, all of them, had gone there for the unveiling of the single opposition candidate. That is what the crowd wanted. And the leaders, all those who wanted to be the president, had gone there, each and everyone expected all other candidates to step down for them. If it were me, I would just pray God that the others do step down for me so that I remain alone. And each and everyone wanted that. At that particular time and moment, the only candidate who had stepped down from all those who wanted to be president was Raila Amolo Odinga. And Raila Amolo Odinga had not declared he was stepping down for whom. It was he was the one and only presidential candidate who stepped down. Okay, he didn't say who he was, but actions speak louder than words, isn't it? When stepping down, that is a fly past in honor of Inspector General, and I've accepted the fly past. Now, Raila is the only one who had stepped down as a presidential candidate. All others had not stepped down. But we had some prominent leaders who were on the same line with those who wanted to be president, but had already stepped down for others. A good example, two good examples, are that Mama Charity Ngilu and Christopher Simiyu Wamalwa, better known as Wamalwa Kijana. They had already declared that they had already requested their supporters to support Mwai Kibaki. But then all other people who wanted to be the president wanted still they were still hoping that others would step down for them. People like Saitoti, people like Nyachai, so on and so forth. So there was tension between ordinary citizens and politicians. And on this day, I don't know what would have happened if they would not have agreed on this particular day. I think citizens would have given up. I'm very sure that if they would not have come up with a single candidate that afternoon, maybe that would have been the end of the opposition. Before the 2002 elections, the opposition did not file a single candidate in 1992. They did not file a single candidate in 1997. So in the year 2002, It was that if they don't file a single candidate, then it is a high possibility that whatever happened. Now, the other two occasions, 92 and 97, KANU won through Moi. And 2002, if they would not have done that, there was a high possibility that KANU, through Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, would win. So, this was the last time. And people were not agreeing on whom to support. That is what formed the decision by Raila Amolo Odinga to say that, when I'm repeating it, but I'm emphasizing it. That is when the last speaker to speak was KIBAKI, and when he had finished speaking and he was on his way to sit, the master of ceremony, who was Raila Amolo Odinga, said, "Si munamuona?" People said yes. Nasi anatosha. Now let us assume that we have gone into the mind of other national leaders who would have wished to be the ones. As I've said, that they had wished that people step down for them. Each one wished another one step down for him or her, mostly him, because Madam Gilo had already stepped down for Emilio Mwai Kibaki. And then they were shocked to hear what Nani was saying. And you see, me, I call it a cattle dip effect. You see, a cattle thinks that it is in a cattle bomb. So inapushiwa, and by the time it realizes it is next to the liquid, it can't go back because there are several others behind it, and it is already too late. So these people already knew that it was too late, and even going out, people would brand you as anti-unity. That is what happened that day afternoon. That day, a few hours before, 4 or 5 hours before, around 10 a.m., at Serena Hotel, there was a meeting and there was an agreement between Simeon Nyachai. I almost said Charles Nyachai. Actually, he's the father to Charles Nyachai. Simeon Nyachai Nyandusi had a meeting with Raila Amolo Odinga. The purpose of the meeting was simple. The purpose of the meeting was to have a coalition. Raila has always said that he headed NDP, which is National Development Party, and they joined together with the Nyachais for the People. They formed together with the Nyachais for the People uh, to form Rainbow. Actually, they are the ones who are called Rainbow Alliance. And then at Uhuru Park, he said that the Rainbow National Alliance, together with, now no, together with others, now Rainbow National Alliance, Rainbow Alliance joined together. That was an alliance already on this side. But on this side, there was another alliance which was called National Alliance of Kenya, NAK. NAK was composed of three major groups. Of course, we had some village parties on all sides, on both sides and all sides. Now, National Alliance of Kenya, NAK, had three major parties. That is Ford Kenya, that is Gilus party, forgotten about it. And then there was Democratic Party. Then they formed an alliance called NAK. Then NAK plus Rainbow Alliance joined together to start NARC, National Alliance for Rainbow of Kenya. No, National Alliance of Rainbow Coalition. Anyway, I'm getting old. So they started, there was NAC and NAC. It is now that NAC of NRC that took over. It was called a super alliance, super coalition. There are two coalitions there. There is the Rainbow Coalition on this side, and then there is the NAK coalition here. They formed a super coalition, which was NARC. That Uhuru Park meeting, Nyachai did not attend. According to Nyachai, after agreeing with Raila Amolo Odinga to form what people are nicknaming, you know, when you start anything, they give it a name, kuharibia jina. They used to call it Western Alliance. But again, if really there is going to be a Western Alliance, if we have an alliance of Western tribes, Luhya, Luo, Teso, and Kisii, they can rule for quite a long time. But you see, Luhya speaking in one voice, that is a story of another day. So Nyachai, according to Nyachai, is that they had agreed on a Rainbow Alliance, and he was in, after a long day's hard work, he was just that way. And he knew the other coalition, according to him, he knew the other coalition was having their meeting in Uhuru Park, only to be shocked to see that Raila was the master of ceremony. And then him, like anybody else, saw Raila saying, si ndio huyo, munamuona? Yeah, that is the word he said. Munamuona, si anatosha. He was shocked. And you see, Wakisii wakidecide kuwa unreasonable, they are very good at that. And Nyachai himself had even accepted that on numerous occasions Nyachai had publicly said that yeye ni kichwa ngumu. So that is how it is. So on one day, Raila had two MOUs at, what do you call, at Serena with Nyachai, and also another one at Uhuru Park. Now, why did Raila go to NAK and bring other people there? What people do not know is that as they were talking in Uhuru Park, Raila had already seen Kibaki clandestinely. People don't like the name clandestinely. Could I say covertly? He had seen Mwai Kibaki covertly. And he had even met Gilu and Wamalwa. The four of them had met covertly. Before I continue, I had talked of Raila's history in Sungura Mjanja. He goes and looks for things for himself. Anamwacha nyinyi mkiwa hivi. Maneno ya Nigerian number, maneno ya akiwa kamiti, ana nini, ABCD. People turned to me and said, just by saying that at committee alifanya hivyo na hivi, I was branded anti-Luo and anti-Raila. And a few minutes ago, I've just said that Kisii na Wameru, hey, these people, akidecide kuwa unreasonable, anaweza andika thesis ya PhD ya unreasonability. But to me, that was not seen to be tribalism. Attacking Kisii, attacking Meru, attacking even Luhyas. But when you touch Raila, umetukana Wajaluo wote, you hate Luos, you do what? Why do you hate Luos? But Gen Z letter came. I'm told that Gen Z letter started in their own social media saying, hey, kumbe mzee alikuwa anasema vizuri, alikuwa anasema, because we had told Raila to keep off na yeye akapata nafasi ya kwenda kupata that is mzee Kwatenge alikuwa amesema ukweli. That is Raila for you. So Raila had gone to see the three. You know, he's very good in mobilizing, he's very good in changing people, because when he entered, when NDP joined with KANU, I'll come to that. When he left KANU, he left with more than what he took there. There are some people like George Kinuthia Saitoti. There are some people, very many, let me just talk of Saitoti, whom people knew that they'll die in KANU. But when he left KANU, they just followed him. In fact, he did not even wait for them to follow him. So people said that he's a good, by the way, he's the greatest crowd mobilizer in Kenya's history. Maybe kuna mwingine atakuja baadaye. So he went to see the three. He went to see the three because of what happened in KANU, I'll tell you. And he assured the three that I'm coming to Kenya. No, I'm not Kenya. I'm coming to you with a lot of people. And this thing, you'll get it. Of course, everybody knew about his mobilization power, including removing from KANU people who are known to be KANU dam. So they said, okay, welcome, whatever, whatever. And you see, in those occasions is when you are now asked, and what would you want for your bother? He told them he wanted to be made the vice president. And you see, Wamalwa Kijana is another Kindiki, was another Kindiki, and was another Mwai Kibaki. Wamalwa Kijana didn't even utter a thing. And I said, those are the gentle politicians of Kenya's history. But on a few occasions, Mwai Kibaki gets annoyed. So this is one of the occasions where Mwai Kibaki got annoyed and turned to Raila Amolo Odinga. He told Raila Amolo Odinga that we do not mind a third force. We are here NAK. KANU can be there, then you can force the third force. But Madam Gilo, especially being a lady, you see, ladies were created to be peacemakers since even before Adam. So she told, they had agreed that Kibaki was to be the president, Wamalwa Kijana was to be the vice president, and Gil was to be the prime minister. So when Raila said that he wanted to be the vice president, Wamalwa never uttered a thing. But Kibaki said, if you want to be the vice president of this coalition, just form a third coalition. That is when Gilo said, no, let us form a broad-based government, or nowadays they call it bread-based. Let us form a bread-based government that Raila will be the prime minister. Raila was not even contented. He went now and saw Kibaki alone. He went and saw Kibaki alone and told Kibaki that they should form a French type of government. Now, if you want to know about French type of government, look at my very first few videos that I had recorded on this channel. I have talked about French, French democracy, whereby the president goes around campaigning And when he is campaigning and is elected, he goes and chooses a person. He goes and chooses a person from his party, from his coalition, and makes him the prime minister. We saw that one in, is it Mali, one of these West African countries, where the military junta had blocked Mr. Sonko from contesting, placing their laws that stopped him. Then Mr. Sonko appointed one of his whatever lieutenants to contest for the presidency, and he went around and said, if you elect him, you have elected me. When that fellow was elected president, the first thing he did was to appoint Sonko as the prime minister. In this type of government, the president goes around doing a lot of campaign, but once he or she is elected, they hand over all the powers to the prime minister. That is the agreement that Raila suggested to Kibaki, meaning that after Kibaki has been elected, then apart from the two functions, the function of being the commander in chief and the function of being uh, head of government, no, head of state. There is a difference between head of government and head of state. So apart from being the head of state and being the commander in chief, all other powers are given to the prime minister, non-elected prime minister. So lawyers were called, senior lawyers were called to prepare the MOU, and that is when Ngilu and Wamalo were brought in. But then, if you are doing a deal with somebody who looks mjinga, then be careful. Maybe you are the one who is mjinga. Because immediately after elections, Raila now wanted the MOU. You remember there was a war on MOU. MOU was not honored. MOU was not honored. Sijui nini nini. Kibaki just said one sentence, that we cannot create unconstitutional positions like prime minister to run the government from a constitutionally elected president. So you now know from Uhuru Park, and you now know about the MOU, is that Raila saying endorsing Kibaki had a hidden motive. It was not just freely the way a lot of things happen. And why did it happen? Let us go back to 1997. 1997, Moi was very good in convincing everybody that he will hand over to you the powers. Moi was good in convincing everybody that he will leave powers to you. That is why at one time he had several vice chairmen of KANU. There were four: Musalia, Noah Katana Ngala, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. There were four. So there was the very very powerful. Sorry, I didn't want to use the word forceful, but very powerful Secretary General Raila Amolo Odinga. So he was telling everybody, it's you I'm going to hand over to you. Then it reached a time, you see, when you keep telling somebody, I will pay you on such a day, I will pay you on that such a day. There is excuses zinafikaka pahali zinaisha. So as days were approaching, and those who were not candidates had to be told. Saitoti was told somewhere in Narok, very bad, in Masai land, imagine. He was told, Saitoti, wewe ni rafiki yangu, lakini mambo ya siasa na urafiki ni vitu tofauti. There was a meeting in Mount Elgon, which is Western Province. where, if I'm not wrong, that is where Uhuru was declared. Now, a place where Mudavadi comes from is where Uhuru was declared. So you find that as this were approached for the next general election, it was mandatory that Moi had to indicate which particular candidate he wanted to be the presidential candidate for Kanu. And that is why when he declared Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. But shortly before it became public, he sent somebody. I'm told it is a prominent Luo person. Now, who this prominent Luo person is, I have never known. By then, Raila Amolo Odinga was the Secretary General of KANU and co-minister for energy. The minister for energy, there were two. There was Polisi Loile Lotodo and Raila Amolo Odinga. They were the two ministers of energy, and their offices were in Kencom House. So when this prominent Luo, whom to date I do not know who he was, went and told Raila that Moi has decided that the presidential candidate for KANU will be Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and his running mate will be you. Have you heard what I've been sent? He said, yes, I've heard. No, he didn't first of all say, have heard. He bent down. He bent down and kept quiet for some time. And then that prominent Luo person asked Raila, have you heard what I've been sent to tell you? He said, I have heard. And he was looking down and he avoided eye contact. Then he was asked, what do I go to tell Moi? That is when he stretched his head and looked at that person in the eye and told him two things. One, what do you expect me to go and tell Luo Nyanza? Do you want me to tell Luo Nyanza people that the person whose father, my father was his vice president, our fathers were leaders, his father was the president, I was the vice president. No, my father was the vice president. Now you want to tell me that we the sons, the son of the president becomes the president, son of the vice president becomes the vice president. Don't you see even the further implication to our tribe that every time we are with that tribe, they rule, we are the second class? No, I don't accept. Now that person went back and I don't know how it went. That is the time when Moi now declared Uhuru publicly. Now, in as much as a lot of Kenyans do hold Raila in high hopes and high esteem, this is an individual who will go down in history as somebody who, as I've said, is very good in mobilizing, but would use and would look for an opportunity to go back and say, if you give me something, then I'll control my people. So that when his colleagues are now calling him on phone, he switches off his phone and starts calling them using a Nigerian number. Why Nigerian? I don't know. Maybe because they are very close to Olusegun Obasanjo. And that is now what happened in Kasarani, and so on and so forth. So the purpose of me recording this was to put records right. To put records right, because unless it is a situation where your memory is failing you or anything, but for anything, that is why in a public inquest and even courtrooms and so on and so forth, you are usually asked to use the exact words that were used. So I've tried as much as I can remember for the next generation of Kenyans to have the clear picture. Thank you.